Greetings YouTube. Today I'm going to be linking to an article on Metafilter, also known as the Big Blue. In this particular topic, Utah State Senator Aaron Osman has introduced a proposal to abolish compulsory education for children in his home state. The proposal outlines 4 recommendations. 1. Restoring the expectation that parents are primarily responsible for the educational success of their own children. 2. Shifting the public mindset to recognize that education is not an obligation, but an opportunity to be treasured and respected. 3. Rolling back the requirement that children and teachers must be present in the classroom for at least 990 hours per year. And 4. Reiterating the belief that if a parent decides to keep their child home or to go on a family vacation, it's the responsibility of that parent to ensure that their child completes the assignments and stays current with their class. Now this is an interesting outline, and I'm going to take it on point by point. Point 1. Restoring the expectation that parents are primarily responsible for the educational success of their own children. This would be great if every single family in America had at least one stay-at-home parent who had all of the educational requirements they need to fulfill that role. But in America, almost all families do not have a stay-at-home parent. I believe it's 60% of families have both parents working, and the ones that, even then, the other ones often have a parent that works part-time. So we're not in a situation where there is simply the availability of parents to do this. They don't have the time because they have to work to feed and house their children and themselves. This is a utopian idea from a bygone era that never really existed, because the educational standards in this situation would be incredibly inconsistent, because these parents are not trained educators. 2. Shifting the public mindset to recognize that education is not an obligation, but an opportunity to be treasured and respected. And it is an opportunity to be treasured and expected. And we need to reinforce that idea across the nation and the world. But you don't have to shift the public mindset. All you have to do is stop stomping on public education, which is what conservatives have been doing for 40 years. Doing everything in their power to grind it into dust and let it blow away. 3. Rolling back the requirement that children and teachers must be present in the classroom for at least 990 hours per year. That's oddly specific. So you want to make sure that they're only there how many hours? Do you have a specific number of hours you'd like to have them be there? 990 sounds like a good number to me. I would roll back the summer breaks. Most people don't work farms any longer, so there is no harvesting involved. So why do we have summer breaks? Why are we doing year-round education with smaller, more frequent breaks in between? Longer weekends, a week here, a week there, something like that. Instead of having a large break at the end of the school year, you'd have half as many breaks, but doled out over the course of the year. Just like, say, adults have vacation time. 4. Reiterating the belief that if a parent decides to keep their child home or family vacation, it's their responsibility to keep them up to date. Again, utterly inconsistent. This is not going to work because the parents don't have the educational background to pull it off. I know people that are raising children in households that have no books. None. The parents don't read. The parents don't read to their children. The parents don't keep books in the house for their family as reference material. And I'm not just talking, they've switched over to the internet. I mean, an absolute environment of intellectual depravity. Nothing available for their children at home. It's an educational wasteland. And that's what this senator wants to turn the children of America to? Compulsory education is one of the cornerstones of the American democracy. Always has been, always will be. We need an educated population. Now, this smacks of the whole small government libertarian mindset. All right? make the government small enough so you can drown it in a bathtub. And frequently when I encounter the libertarian mindset, one of the things they say that they want the government to do, and they should have a very small role, one of the small roles that they say it should do is defense of the country, which is actually a huge role, but we'll ignore that bit of cognitive dissonance for a moment. And one of the posters in this on the blue, a guy named Viking Sword, who's very, very well spoken, I recommend you going down and reading the entirety of his passage, it's near the end of this particular thread, has written something, and I'm going to quote a section of it, which I think is incredibly important, particularly when dealing with folks that have the mindset that one of the few things the government should do is defend the nation. You cannot have a powerful military without a top-notch educational system. You cannot have a top-notch educational system without compulsory education. And how do you get top-notch education system? You need vast infrastructure and funding of the kind that only a well-functioning economy can provide. You pay for a successful military with enormous investments, and how can you have a well-functioning economy with high levels of education? Educational levels are directly correlated with economic success and have been for all of history, while illiteracy levels have always dragged the economy down and prevented progress. And how do you get a successful economy? In addition to an educated populace with as small a percentage of illiterates as you can manage, you need a well-functioning judicial system, but you also need a very strong regulatory regime where the government is indispensable. If you don't have that, take a look at what laissez-faire did for the economy during the Great Crash and Great Depression and various reruns such as 2008. To have a good economy, you need a healthy citizenry. This means your water and air cannot be poisoned, and for that you need the government to regulate that, because the Koch brothers won't. If you want your medicines to work, you can't rely on Pfizer at all. You need the government, or you're welcome to radioactive creams and snake oil. Which do you think would work best? And yes, historical context, people did actually sell radioactive substances to the general public in an era before there was regulatory government agencies in place to prevent them from doing that. And what about vast investments in infrastructure such as roads and? And if you get thinking, you'll realize that you simply cannot have a modern, complex society without being completely enmeshed with the government of the people, by the people. Aside, we the people. Including having a military that is able to defend against competitors who would love for your society to devolve into the libertarian conservative fantasy you abdicate so that they can gobble it up with a minimum of effort. Alas, the world is complicated. The government is not some foreign entity which you can blame for all your perceived problems, and the solution is to exercise it. The government is us. Any bureaucracy can malfunction. Every system will have flaws. The answer is not to throw out the baby with the bathwater and the bathtub with the bathroom and the house and the city and the country and go back to living in caves. The answer is to address the particular problem through reform. Identify the problem, think, solve. Leave it as an exercise for you to figure out where being diluted fits into this. And that is one of the key failures of this proposal. The person putting it forward is deluded into thinking that erasing public education is going to help. Not to mention, it would mean that only the wealthy could afford to educate their children. Does that sound fair? Does that sound fair to the 99% who wouldn't be able to afford their children up to the same level as the rich would be able to? Do you think you'd have a functioning democracy under those situations? I certainly don't. This proposal is absurd. It is anti-American. It is suicidal. And yet there are people abdicating this kind of thing every day in America. Most of them of the conservative, libertarian slant. Maybe throw in a little tea party for flavor. It's madness. Complete and utter madness. And Viking Sword's point is poignant. The solution to this is not to eliminate education. The solution to this is to think.